Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. And, of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. And we've got Dino's. How you doing tonight here, Dino?
Doing okay, Keith. How are you?
I am well. I am well. What you been up to here lately?
As little as possible. Spent some time helping a friend out not too long ago. Had to help him clear out a whole house. He had to move his mother. So it was kind of a big deal. Took care of that.
So. Best you can do, man. Best you can do.
Yeah. I'm glad I could be there for him. Just how it worked out. So it's a good thing that I could do it.
Yep.
So just out there to spread the love as much as I can.
Yep. How's Robin? How's Robin doing?
He's doing well.
Good deal. Good deal. All right. Well, we're here tonight to talk about the master trust and the general ledger. Now, if you go back in my videos, I think it was like 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, I did a series of videos on reconciling the master trust account. It's an extensive series of videos, about 43 of them, I think. And we went through and discussed a lot of details about what the narrowcast master trust exception report is. And it's a report that's generated when something is out of balance in the account that is tied to the general ledger, the master trust. And so we're going to go over some master trust details tonight. And we're going to start out with Investopedia. Investopedia tells us very simply, a master trust is an investment vehicle. So when they talk about the master trust account, they're talking about the investment vehicle. And when we find out that it's tied to the general ledger, we find out the general ledger itself is an investment vehicle. Now, general ledger is the United States corporate entity for the United States of America, the chartering agent. And that collectively manages pooled investments. Remember, that's what we've been talking about here lately. They take a certain number of investments and pool them together and invest them in their own name, because it's not feasible to take hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of the smaller investments and literally name them individually. That's the whole intent, is to make the ledgering easier, and it can refer to the main fund where assets are pooled. So like I said, they're taking our information and putting it in their system as an investment, as their asset. Go ahead, brother.
How does this relate to the CAFR, or does it?
Absolutely. That's how everything's funneled up. If you remember that video, what's his name did in 1986 or whatever? Can't remember. They offed him. But he did a video on the government CAFR accounts and exposed it all. And that's what we're looking at here. The blue sky, the states have each of the states have their own blue sky securities laws. Now, this is because they're taking in property outside of the United States. This is under 26 U.S.C. 1031, known as 1031 exchanges. Exchanges of real property for productive use or investment. It's a tax exchange. And what they're doing is they're taking your private data elements, converting them to government information, and using that as the investment vehicle. That's that birth certificate, the enumeration at birth, that allows them to keep track of anything tied to the general ledger. It's already tied to the general ledger. The problem is the title is in the wrong hands. And that's where I've discussed the expenses are incidental to transfer title to the agency and then to the United States and then to the Postal Service, who is in fact the registered agent already. So we're going to get into this, is that the Postal Service is the one that's required to research and resolve any out of balance accounts with the general ledger. They're the ones responsible for the general ledger. So why are we dealing with state ledgers? That's holding the title in an administrative capacity. We want it in our capacity through a diplomatic post, and that's what we're looking at. We're trying to establish our own independent diplomatic post or diplomatic station, equal station in life. It goes on, and like I said, they're taking those data elements, converting them on the other side. They take the data element of the last name and substitute it, which is a conversion, with a firm name. They take the data elements known as the Social Security number that has dashes and converts it to the number without dashes and call it an obligor number, another conversion. And then they take all of those that they collect individually. Remember, each individual is identified by the name and number, and that is a record. The individual's name and number, which means it belongs to the individual, identifies the record. So the individual is the record. 5 U.S.C. 552A, records maintained on individuals and collectively managed in a master feeder structure. That's the state's blue sky securities laws, converting everything and then feeding them to the U.S. securities laws by converting them to Treasury securities. Another conversion. Also called a hub and spoke structure. So if you got the United States at the center and you got 50 states around, that's the hub and spoke structure. Get it? Employers can use a master trust structure for pooling investments in an employee benefit plan. Medicare qualified government employee, and that is the enumeration. When you are enumerated at birth, you are considered an employee by resident status for income tax purposes because now you're involved in a hub and spoke structure of a master feeder collectively managed for pooled assets. You become part of that community as a resident and a United States citizen. You become the go-to. You become the circulation. If you know how to do it, you know how to make it go to the right place. And that's what we're talking about. We're taking the title out of the hands of the state, passing it to the United States for settlement and clearance so that all creditors are made whole. The accounts are cleared to zero, and any remainder is reverted and merged with the of the estate in a new trust. A new trust. A postal trust. That's where you've got your agreement with the Postal Service with that diplomatic post, and you place your private trust in their hands. They're the ones with the real estate investment trust. Equal consideration. How a master trust works. A master trust is typically some type of pooled investment vehicle that allows for the management of funds contributed from multiple sources. So the fund is being managed by somebody else, not you. You're not funding it. Or excuse me, you're funding it, but the funds are coming of funds contributed. They're volunteered. Otherwise, there would be funds from fees, payments, charges, costs, taxes, insurances. They'd name all those out. But since we're doing it voluntarily, like we said last night, from multiple sources, a portfolio manager is responsible for overseeing the assets in the master trust. Okay, so when we go to these administrative courts, it's the clerk that's doing all this. The clerk is the one that is issuing everything. The judge is the one that causes the order to be given. The accounting and reporting functions for master trusts are usually complex. Remember that state's vital statistics jurisdiction chart that I showed you with the birth registration and the death registration? It's very complex. And so, like we talked about last night, when we're dealing with the trust issue here, it is multiple jurisdictions, multiple cases, and therefore equity dissolves at multiplicity of suits. This is because a master trust involves multiple investors and may include feeder funds. So the court is a feeder fund. The schools are feeder funds. The restaurants, the theaters, your entertainment, all of it, everything of commercial value is a feeder fund. Everything has interest and inflation. That's a feeder fund. That's what this system lives on. Inflation and interest, not the taxes and insurance. Those are distractions. A master trust, that's the fraud. You're not required to pay taxes, and you're not required to pay insurances. Your Social Security is not required. If Social Security is not required, then what is a requirement? And again, remember, folks, like we discussed in last night's equity video, those documents come with a certain immunity already. George Washington University of Law. Go back and watch that. A master trust is used as a comprehensive asset management scheme for a strategy managed with master feeder structure. Basically, it is the master fund that collectively invests for all the associated feeder funds. In a master feeder structure, assets are pooled, managed, and transacted from the master trust. So again, like I said, the 50 states are the spokes and the rim of the supposed centralized United States. And on the international level, it's the Postal Service, the UN, and the Universal Postal Union, International Parliamentary Union as the hub, and all the 192 nations or 193 nations are the spokes and wheel. BlackRock, for example, is an asset manager with an array of master feeder funds. Each of the funds has a master trust, and those funds are all those different corporations that BlackRock owns. Those are all feeder funds for the master trust of BlackRock. This is the oligarchy of capitalist corporatism, where the assets are managed collectively. The investment company's master trust LLC strategy. That means the members of the company are all investors under an LLC, sharing equally. See what that LLC does? That's implying equity right there. Everybody's equity is a sort of equality. So the guy that works 20 hours a week in an LLC that doesn't get paid but takes a share would get a smaller share than the guy that puts in 60 hours a week. And they would determine what those shares would be privately amongst themselves. Doesn't have to have anything to do with any other public structure. Uses a master feeder structure. The master LLC or master trust LLC is the master fund, and its feeder funds include BIF Treasury Fund and BBIF Treasury Fund. What is BIF Treasury Fund? It's not telling me what BIF stands for. But it does tell me what the SEC is. BlackRock Summary Prospectus. BIF Treasury Fund. BIF Treasury Fund. Before you invest, you may want to review the fund's prospectus, which contains more information about the fund and its risks. You can find the fund's prospectus and other information about the fund, including the fund statement of additional information, Let's ask it, what does BIF mean? Bank Insurance Fund. Bank Insurance Fund. So they have to have insurance. Okay. Bank Insurance Fund. It's BIF, Bank Insurance Fund, Treasury Fund. Okay. Treasury Fund, $59 a year. Interesting stuff. In a diversified portfolio made up only of short-term U.S. Treasury securities. Those are those local municipal corporate bonds. 90 days. So let's go back. Other examples of BlackRock hub and spoke funds can be found at BlackRock Master Portfolios. Managing and trading assets collectively from a master trust allows the company to keep fund operating costs down. Yeah, that insurance is pretty damn cheap. Master trusts can be used for managing all types of portfolios. Overall, master trusts provide for greater economies of scale. Greater economies of scale. Economies of scale are cost advantages reaped by companies when production becomes efficient. So this is saying the higher expenses are on the shoulders of the little guy.
Hey Keith, I got a question.
Sure.
What does so that bank insurance fund? I mean, that alone, I would have to look deeper into that, because aren't banks already federally insured? Why do they need their own insurance?
Well,
when does that get paid?
Well, they're required to carry their own insurance, much like an employer is required to pay equal taxes of all of his employees. Each employee that puts in a certain amount of taxes, as an employer, they're required to put in equal taxes for each of those employees. It's an insurance. Equal consideration, equal benefit that's been flip-flopped to the wrong parties. Everything's upside down and backwards. They're applying it to the wrong places. Like I've expressed here lately and showed everybody, if a United States business means a United States citizen, then it's reason and deduction that says that a United States citizen means a United States business. And that's all it is. That enumeration at birth is about business. And I was never taught how to run that business. Most of these officials are not even aware of this. They're just doing their damn job. So let's go back to it. Damn ads. Companies can achieve economies of scale by increasing production and lowering costs. So instead of the small man that has to make them one at a time and has a larger expense because it takes him longer to make it and he doesn't have such a great profit in the end, if he can double it, he improves his profit. So when we get into the larger corporations, their profits keep extending beyond and beyond and at a greater efficiency. That's why they're driving economies. That's nothing but greed. Do you really need to drive for efficiency, or should you drive for the actual demand and supply just for that? See, that's a problem with these markets that depend upon efficiency to keep the costs down. It actually drives the demand or the supply up, and that allows the convenience of people to start demanding more. That's the sickness of this system and its technology, and being able to let everybody live in a greater convenience and comfort. It's really not as good for you as you think. And everybody's, again, worried about efficiency on a commercial scale rather than on a spiritual and natural scale. This recycling issue with plastics and everything is just ridiculous. It's 2024. We're the greatest creatures on this earth in all of history, as far as I know, and yet here we are. We're the greatest destroyers as well. How does that work? This happens because costs are spread over a larger number of goods. Costs can be both fixed and variable. The size of business generally matters when it comes to economies of scale. And it makes a big difference when everybody's classified as part of that economy, as part of that demand cycle in which they are required to supply. When everybody takes upon that benefit, it raises that demand. When you learn how to be the benefactor, then you understand that it's not at an expense, because if it would be at an expense, it would be at an expense to you, when in fact you're the one giving the benefit to begin with. The larger the business, the more the cost savings. Economies of scale can be both internal and external. Internal economies of scale are based on management decisions, while external ones have to do with outside factors. The outside factor to the United States is that everybody's claiming to be a resident and a citizen of the United States without knowing any better. That pushes and drives that identification system to make sure that they're not trading with an enemy. That's the only purpose for it, folks. If you were born on this land, then reason and logic says, why would I be deemed an enemy? Don't you know your brother? Don't you know the image and likeness? Shouldn't you know the enemy by seeing that enemy? How is it you see an enemy but not your brother? Internal functions include accounting, information technology, and marketing, which are also considered operational efficiencies and synergies. Economies of scale are an important concept for any business in any industry and represent the cost savings and competitive advantages larger business have over smaller ones. And so what it's saying here, folks, in case you don't mind me putting my input in, is that the more you demand for the high quality products, the more that drives out the little man that may not be able to produce such a high quality because he doesn't have that technology to rip them out and have all that expensive equipment. He might only be able to put out a handmade bike that has a custom feature and be able to do good by that and subsist. But again, it's this huge oligarchical capitalism of this commercial system that's driving the little man out. If you don't understand that, it's because you don't understand You're the creditor. You're the one that gets to settle these matters. And if you seek equity, you must first come with equity. You must do that with clean hands. And again, like I said last night, that means you have to have knowledge going into things, knowing how to express the qualities of your abilities of contracting to make sure things are concise. I already know that this comes with an immunity, so let's talk about that first. That gets rid of the taxes, insurances, charges, costs, expenses, all of that, because when I come with that immunity, I'm also coming as the creditor, the one extending the credit, informed use of credit, now expressing that informed use that you can't deny. So let's get back into it. Most consumers don't understand why a smaller business charges more for a similar product sold by a larger company. That's because the cost per unit depends on how much the company produces. Larger companies can produce more by spreading the cost of production over a larger amount of goods. In other words, they get the cost reduction of buying 10,000 pounds of, or 10,000. We'll say 10,000 pounds of aluminum framing, so that they can construct and weld their own bike frames and sell bike frames. The individual guy that doesn't have that, he can still build bike frames, but he's got to buy smaller amounts of tubing, and therefore he doesn't get the cost cut for buying in large quantity. An industry may also be able to dictate the cost of a product if several different companies are producing similar goods within that industry. There are several reasons why economies of scale give rise to lower per unit costs. First, specialization of labor and more integrated technology boosts production volumes. So again, this is all just the costs of capital. Second, lower per unit costs can come from bulk orders from suppliers, larger advertising buys, or lower costs of capital. The lower cost of capital is recognizing, again, you don't have to put assets up. They're already there. It's known in the credit system. It's a matter of correcting the records so that you can do that reversion and merger of the estate in a new trust. Establishing it with the correct master trust accountant, the one already assigned. I mean, if it's a United States business, don't you think it should be the United States doing the accounting and not offering it to a second-hand accountant? There is no birth registration in the United States. Why not? It would seem that would solve the problem. Were you born in the United States? No, but that's where the birth is registered. And that's the establishment of a United States business. A gift for me if I grow up and when I become age of majority and want to perform the functions of public office, then I can do that. But it's got to be with knowing, willing intent. Clean hands, good faith. How can I have clean hands and good faith if I wasn't taught? That means I went into it blindly. Like letting the vessel run all over the place without steering it. Because I didn't know that's what I was supposed to be doing. And as a steering, the one that's supposed to be steering it, that's the one that's pointing it in this direction or this direction. That's the director, the one that's giving it direction. You're supposed to be the director. You're supposed to direct them. People are not comprehending this. Your yay is your yay, your nay is your nay. Third, spreading internal function costs across more units produced and sold helps to reduce the costs. A company can create a diseconomy of scale when it becomes too large and chases an economy of scale. So what BlackRock is doing is using a bunch of smaller corporations of different scales of economy. And they're all just funneling all those funds up to larger scales of economy. The local municipal economy is that lowest scale of economy, dependent upon its local merchants for their pooled investments. Each one of us is the microeconomy feeding into that funneled economy of commerce, when we're actually the creditor and can fix it on the paperwork. So let's go on to the next one. This is the one that I talked about with the reconciling master trust accounts at Postal One sites. Again, the book entry system is the electronic record. The Postal One site is another postal account, electronic record account that is tied directly to the general ledger. This is where I believe we're supposed to make that deposit of that United States business, so that anything that's out of account with that one, that individual, either at the municipal, county, state, or federal level, because they're all funneling up into that general ledger, it's got to be reconciled by the Postal Service, researched and reconciled within 3 days. Effective immediately, Handbook F-101, Field Accounting Procedures. Remember, Field Accounting Procedures is a military term. Field and area. Is revised with a new procedure for reconciling master trust accounts for Postal One registered sites. Postal retail units. That's that United States business as a customer, postal retail unit. And it's going to be an advanced credit deposit account. So you're going to do all the settling, like I said, chain of title, going to expenses be incidental all the way up the chain to the United States Postal Service, where it's going to establish a postal retail unit under the United States business name that is now merged with a new trust. So this is going to be the estate, and then you're going to have your trust account. It's going to be deposited in there. PRUs that are interfaced with Postal One are no longer required to reconcile master trust accounts once a month. Instead, these sites will receive a narrowcast master trust exception report when there is an out of balance status for 3 consecutive days. That's a postal or a contract term. You got three days to respond to an offer. Postal One and the general ledger. Between Postal One and the general ledger. See, it's their account. You're a customer and you've got an advance credit deposit. It's the title, and it holds the credits. It's got the full faith and credit seal on it, and the correction of the record has now accounted for the remainders after all the creditors are made whole. All the accounts cleared to zero. The remainder is what's left as a credit. The postmaster, unit manager, or designated employee must research and resolve the out-of-balance master trust accounts upon receipt of the narrowcast master trust exception report. Additionally, a copy of the report with an annotation of the actions taken to resolve the difference must be retained with PS Form 1412, Daily Financial Report, as supporting documentation. See, all the documentation, like I've said many times, is supposed to have supporting documentation. So when you get that birth certificate, you can't just send it in and say, hey, you got to have your supporting documentation. The next one is where we get the previous page. You'll notice that previous page was just a site, and it just had that small little bit. And then the little field accounting procedures, roles, responsibilities, field unit managers, weekly responsibilities, monthly responsibilities, customer business mail activity, permit, imprint, and periodicals, advance deposits, reconciling advance deposit accounts, withdrawal from customer advance deposit, recording postage statements, Postal 1 units, customer business reply mail and postage due activity, advance deposits, reconciling advance deposits, withdrawal from customer, recording daily invoices. So this is going to tell you specifically what goes on with the reconciling and master trust accounts. And I don't have one of those yet. I do have the enterprise payment systems account through the Postal Service, but I do not have the Postal 1 master trust account set up yet. That will hopefully be coming soon with my initiation of the forensic audit. We'll see. So when we come back to this one, this is the actual document it comes from. This is their internal postal bulletin, and it's got a lot of information on here. Let me grab this, and I'm going to drop this down in chat. That way everybody can check this out. You're not a trust holder. You're the benefactor. They're the ones that hold all the records. So I wouldn't go down that line. I'm a holder in due course of an instrumentality of that master trust, known as the general ledger, evidenced by enumeration at birth that it keeps track of every financial transaction within a special maritime territorial jurisdiction known as an obligation or other security of the United States for all United States vessels. So when we look at this, like I said, it's got all kinds of stuff on here, and it's going to tell us that when it comes to setting up a diplomatic post office, a DPO, that there are certain standards. So let's see what we can find. Overseas military or diplomatic mail. Overseas military, diplomatic mail. Mail addressed to military and diplomatic post offices overseas is subject to certain conditions or restrictions of mailing regarding content, preparation, and handling. The AFP or APO, Army Post Office, Fleet Post Office, Diplomatic Post Office. APO is Army Post Office, which is for Army and Air Force, I believe. Fleet Post Office is for the Navy, and then Diplomatic Post Office is for, like I said, diplomatic, somebody going about the world spreading knowledge, as we determined with diploma etymology. Table below outlines these conditions by zip codes, trademarked. Through the U.S., a footnoted mailing restrictions codes. And then they go through and they give you all their codes. Can you guys read this stuff? DPO means Diplomatic Post Office. FPO means Fleet Post Office. And like I said, APO means Army or Air Force Post Office. And this is basically what we're looking at, folks. The ability to overcome their administrative postings under their Army, Air Force, Navy, or diplomatic post through the Department of State. So when we talk about the trust funds and everything, 31. We have 31 U.S. Code 1321 trust funds. And you can go through here, you can find the Philippines Special Fund, Customs Duties, Philippines Special Fund, Internal Revenue. Okay, this is what we're talking about. Unclaimed condemnation awards, Department of Treasury. See, that vessel was condemned 94 times. Or actually, they attempted to condemn it 94 times. Not all of them are condemnations. But see, all of those condemnations come with awards. See, everything's funded. But see, some of those funds they can't touch because they know they're not theirs. Naval Reservation Longapo Civil Fund, Armed Forces Retirement Home, Library of Congress Gift Fund. But we're going to go down here, and you guys can look at this 13 USC 1321, or excuse me, 31 USC 1321 trust funds. And we go down here to 73, Estate of Decedents, Department of State Trust Fund. And that's the enumeration at birth, folks. The enumeration at birth creates a decedent estate known as a United States business, a United States citizen. At the state level, here in Iowa, they specifically define it as a burial trust, wherein they take on the responsibility under general welfare and the Social Security Administration, which is welfare for mothers and children, so that if that child dies or that mother or, and we're talking about foundling hospitals, so the paternity isn't always determined in most cases, except by a marriage license, which is just a commercial venue. But it goes to the general welfare being for mothers and children. And if the mom dies, the state will come in as the patronymical father under paternity and adoption laws for foundlings and provide for the child. If the child dies, the state again will step in for a mother as a patronymical father to take care of the burial expenses of the child. And the one that's actually involved in the estates of decedents, as far as that trust fund is the Department of State. Clearly defined before us here today. It is a state of decedents under the obligation of the Department of State, and it is a trust fund. The estate of decedent, by the record, is known as a beneficiary. He is the beneficiary of this trust fund, tied directly to the general ledger. So what was the next one? The next one is through the Social Security. Again, it says, what are the trust funds? The Social Security trust funds are financial accounts in the U.S. Treasury, but they are being administered at the state level through Social Security Administration. Again, through enumeration at birth, you are considered a Medicare qualified government employee at birth, folks. There are two separate Social Security trust funds, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance, OASI Trust. Fund pays retirement and survivors benefits. And the Disability Insurance Trust Fund pays disability benefits, Social Security taxes, and other income. That means the Social Security taxes that you contribute, which are voluntary, are an investment for them to make income. It's an investment. Are deposited in these accounts. Financial accounts in the U.S. Treasury. Don't tell me that fucking account doesn't contain credits. I don't know who these gurus are or who these frauditors are. The ones going around saying we're frauds. This is right from Social Security.
Well, it also makes sense. I mean, why else would they take the money? I mean, what else would they do with it? Take the money they took from us, they invest it. The question is, do we really get the results of that investment, or does enough of it get siphoned off for whatever they're doing?
Well, listen to this. This is the dumbfounded thing. And Social Security benefits are paid from them. The only purpose for which these trust funds can be used are to pay benefits and program administrative costs.
How nebulous and vague.
The Social Security trust funds hold money not needed in the current year. It's not needed in the current year. It is a surplus to pay benefits and administrative costs, and by law, invested in special treasury bonds that are guaranteed by the U.S. government. That means they're 1-year bonds. A market rate of interest is paid to the trust funds on the bonds they hold. And when those bonds reach maturity or are needed to pay the benefits, the Treasury redeems them. So I don't know. This is live, brother. This is live. Do you need the link? I will put it down there. Oh, haha, you're here. Haha. Greetings,
What's
brother.
going on? What's going on?
Hey. Just
All
trying
right,
to
my
wait.
question was with Social Security, people that are on SSI or retirees that are on SSI and even SSDI, how can they take control of an account and either receive like a lump sum, or if not a lump sum, more than what they're giving, if that makes sense? Because like, for instance, my grandmother's on I think SSI, but she gets so little, bro. You know what I mean? Like, so how can I help her take control of that account and basically get her a little more?
Well, I explained that a little bit earlier. I'm going to pull it up. Okay. It's all about that that title. And what we've got here is the transportation code. Or excuse me, this is Social Security. Let me pull up the other ones too. 49 US CFR. Let's start out with the
And remember, Pedro, you got to walk me through this shit with like a baby, because I don't know. I'll be starting from scratch with her. She hasn't filed no type of UCC paperwork. I don't even think I've done a UCC 1 on her, or a UCC 11, whatever the search is. So, like, treat me as a baby with this, please.
absolutely. What we're looking at here is 49 CFR 24.106. And we know the birth certificate is a bond, and we know it's an entitlement. It's a title. It's got a title on it, okay? And it says expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency. Health and Human Services is the one that this entire record starts out. And it is a state agency that is responsible for a state recovery program in every state. Okay? Expenses incidental to transfer of the title to the agency. The owner of the real property shall be reimbursed for all reasonable expenses the owner necessarily incurred for recording fees, transfer taxes, documentary stamps, evidence of title, boundary surveys, legal descriptions of the real property, and similar expenses incidental to conveying the real property to the agency. However, the agency is not required to pay costs solely required to perfect the owner's title to the real property. And that's what we're talking about, is perfecting that title. No one, you understand this, Janelle, no one can perfect that title except the one whose name that title is in. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so let's look on to the next one. So, because remember, that agency is going to be associated with Social Security Administration under that enumeration at birth. That's the Health and Human Services and Social Security, IRS, all these people. This is what I'm moving forth with. And under 42 U.S. Code 4653, we have the same thing, except it says expenses incidental to transfer of title to the United States. So you gather everything up and you send it through the state that's holding that record. You let everybody at the state level, governor, attorney general, Department of State, Secretary of Treasury, IRS commissioner, Social Security commissioner. It's just a blanket notice to all of those officials that we're going to have this title transferred and the expenses are incidental. And when we transfer them to the state agency, they're going to have that notice. We're also going to have you send them on to the United States. And that same notice is going to show them that we're going to have them send it to the Postal Service. Because once they get it to the United States for settlement and clearance, to clear all credit and make all creditors whole and clear all accounts to zero, anything that's in remainder is to be reverted back in a merger to the estate, now residing in a new private trust. So that
Okay,
incidental,
go ahead.
That incidental transfer, again, like I said, leads to the next one. Expenses incidental to transfer the title to the Postal Service. They're the ones that are supposed to hold that title. They're the ones tied directly to the general ledger. The Social Security, disability, or supplemental income is all administrative. It's not executive. You have the ability to make the executive decision to settle and to control and settle the accounts. And that includes the transfer of the title.
Interesting. Okay. Now, are you working on this, or has someone successfully done this?
Absolutely. I've spent 8 years researching all of this, and I'm adopted. And when I try to get my birth records, they won't let me get the county ones. So that's one of the things that set me on this, knowing that there's something wrong, because I am supposed to be allowed to have the original government document created as material fact evidence to make the distinction.
So that's the reason why they're giving you shit. It might be hard as well for me. My grandmother was born in 1947. I don't know if they'll have the original. It was a bit of a mission getting her birth certificate and shit. So I don't even know.
Yeah.
And I don't even think we got the original one. I think we just got, the one that they regularly give you. So that might be a mission.
Yeah, and see, what I'm doing is next Monday, this coming Monday, I've got an appointment with the IRS to go in and initiate a forensic audit. We're going to look at the grammar. We're going to do a grammar audit and a securities audit, both. That's why I dig into these definitions and stuff, brother. Taxes are voluntary, And under 26 U.S.C. 1031, what they're doing is making, they call them 1031 exchanges, and it's exchange of real property for productive use and investment, but they're not giving us informed use of credit where we can make those exchanges without having to be held liable. It actually comes with immunity already. Went over that last night.
Yeah, I'm gonna tune in more. I'm really interested in, and some of these things have worked for me. So I enjoy the knowledge. I enjoy the knowledge. I enjoy trying to be as free as possible.
And that's what it's about. And the knowledge, again, like I've said many times, brother, and anybody that knows me will reassure you, that's the benefit. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. That's telling me in one short, sweet, plain writing verse. That's the problem.
So what I need to work on right now would be trying to get her original birth certificate.
Not necessarily that. Like I said, I've got 3 of them here, but what we're looking at, equity is entered into by mistake. And that's what we've all been doing. We've been entering data elements into the record by mistake. So we have to admit our own errors, ask for forgiveness, give repentance, letting them know we're not going to do it again. I can't tell you that I'm a United States citizen anymore because I know different.
Has this worked though, Pedo? Has this worked?
That's what I'm going through right now. I'm getting ready to initiate all this information by assigning the IRS agent that I work with as the advocate for the estate.
Okay.
Now he or she's going to have that fiduciary duty, quid pro quo, with indemnification through one of these bonds.
There's a brother on Facebook that I follow. I don't really know much about him, but he was talking about this and he seemed very knowledgeable. I just didn't pick his brain because some people, I don't know, some people just give off a funny vibe, but he seemed knowledgeable. His name was Patrick Moreno, and he was talking about something about taking over those accounts, and he seemed like he knew what the fuck he was talking about.
Absolutely. He knows very well. I've been friends with Patrick Moreno for damn near all the last 8 years.
Yeah. You can kind of spot like who knows what they're talking about and who don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah. And that's the basics of it, folks, is if that title is being held in administrative hands, then there's something wrong. It should be held at the highest there is. That's like a memorandum. And that's one of the things that I say is missing at that enumeration at birth is a memorandum, or what the ecclesiastical forum calls a memorial. You're supposed to memorialize the entrance of a child of God, an angel from heaven into the earth, and promise that you're going to raise him up as a child of God so he shall not waver, and then be able to pass on that knowledge. And again, that's what it's all about. It's a knowledge. Let's see here. So the transfer of title makes perfect sense to you as well?
Yeah, I figured there would have to be some type of a transfer of agent or transfer of title, because if you think about it, SSA, Social Security Administration, is clearly letting you know that they're just administering something. They're administering the trust of something. So it's, once you start breaking through them layers, like that was pretty obvious.
Yeah, and see, my mom worked for Social Security Administration for like 29 years. My dad worked as a assessor, a real estate appraiser for the tax assessor's office all his life for the federal government. And so I've gotten to know a lot about what's going on. But when I did my research into it, it's because I did my research that I saw the underlying shit in it. In order for somebody to be charged taxes on a residential home, they have to be running some kind of business out of there. My dad refuses to understand this.
No, I don't try to force this information on anybody. I just feel like I'm not cocky with it, and I'm not forcing on. If you want to keep paying bills, if you want to keep thinking how you live is the right way, then you go ahead and be free. But don't try to tell me what I'm doing is wrong because you don't
Yeah,
know what the
be
fuck is
free.
going on. You know, then you go exactly. You go ahead and be free there, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, with that, we are at the end of the stream for tonight. You guys got anything on the way out? And I want to tell you, Janelle, I really appreciate you coming up, brother, because I know you are one of the ones that really knows how to use reason and logic in your thought process. So I hope it all bids you well in this, and that we all come together and are successful in this.
Amen to that, bro. And I'm happy to have joined the stream. And thanks for the information.
You bet. Anytime.
Thanks again, brother. Always entertaining and knowledgeable. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. All glory goes to him, and hopefully I'll see you on Thursday's Zoom. In the meantime, guys, you know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's say I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll see everybody next time. Bye now.